started then with our first item. So the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has issued an apology this evening after being accused of making light of safeguarding issues within the Church of England. And that was during a farewell speech to the House of Lords yesterday.
My lords, it is often said, and it is a cliche to say it, but hey, I'm the Archbishop still, that if you want to make God laugh, make plans. Well, on that basis, next year I will be causing God more hilarity than anyone else for many years, because the plans for next year were very detailed and extensive. If you pity anyone, pity my poor diary secretary, who's seen weeks and months of work disappear in a puff of a resignation announcement.
Justin Welby there in his first public address since resigning over his handling of an abuse scandal within the Church of England. Well, earlier today, before Welby's apology, an abuse survivor shared an email they'd sent to the Archbishop following his Lord's address with Times Radio's Kathy Newman. We've voiced their comments up so they can remain anonymous.
After your farewell speech yesterday in the House of Lords, I'm not sure why I spent my time travelling to London and back, and then meeting you last week. In that speech yesterday, you managed to dismiss every single one of John Smythe's 130 worldwide victims, not to mention the family and friends of each one of them. The only benefit of your first public speech since Macon is that you made absolutely clear that, in your opinion, it's all about you and your diary secretary. Victims and survivors aren't even on your radar screen.
It's all about you and your diary secretary. The victims are not even on your radar screen. That's an anonymous, we've got to remain anonymous, abuse survivor talking to Kathy Newman. Well, listening to that was Jayne, a former member of the General Synod and campaigner within the Church of England. Jayne, hello and good evening.
Good evening, Henry.
Yeah. What about that email that abuse survivor sent to Justin Welby? If I had received that, that would have floored me. What do you think of it?
Well, I think that abuse survivor who's been incredibly brave in meeting with Justin in the first place, but absolutely summed up where so many of us were after hearing that absolutely appalling, crass and narcissistic speech yesterday. It was indeed all about Justin. It was a pity party that he was wallowing in. He didn't seem to want to take true responsibility. It was sort of sounding that he was taking a hit for the team. And it was completely inept. And frankly, as someone who's been on the receiving end of similar treatment by Justin over the years, it is completely in character. And I do feel that at long last, the general public have seen what so many of us have had to contend with in private.
Well, hang on a minute. This is the head of the Anglican Communion, somebody who was in the business world, the corporate world, who gave up all of that and decided to take the cloth, decided to follow holy orders, a calling from God. How could such a man rise to the very top, the pinnacle of the Anglican Church?
Very good question, Henry. Because we don't have the right checks and balances or accountability in the system to ensure that when someone becomes the king, if you like, of the Anglican Communion, that they can continue to be held to account. Justin, I'm afraid, has been almost untouchable for years now. There have been many people who have been scared to tell him the truth, including his own staff, about some poor decisions he's repeatedly made. And the truth is, the higher up the candle you go, the higher up the hierarchy, the more you need people around you who are able to tell you things when you get things wrong, to hold you to account. That's how we model our government system. We have separations of powers, we have checks and balances, and we don't have them in the Church of England, and we need to. And I, like many others, have been calling for a massive shake-up. To be honest, I've been calling for this for some time, but I think now we truly recognise that this is a moment where we need to look at the structure in the Church of England and hold those with great power to account.
Well, how do you envisage that structure changing? What kind of new blood, new people need to come in? And who decides the direction in which the church must go? Because it's an ancient organisation, and like ancient structures, it's ossified.
Absolutely, it has, hasn't And it is a big problem, and we need to grasp the nettle now before running into trying to appoint another archbishop and just, having a Justin Welby Mark II. Now is the time for us to have, I believe, a commission. I've called it a royal commission, but some form of investigation that's led by a senior lay person, someone outside the church, but who commands the respect and confidence of those both in the church and outside of it.
But Jayne, what would that person be looking at?
Well, who would be looking at how we got ourselves into such a mess? Do you know, back in the 90s, we had a significant moment within the Church of England's history where we lost millions and millions of pounds. And we commissioned a review, it was called the Turnbull Review, that looked at the structure of the Church of England and came up with the concept of the Archbishop's Council. I was a founding member of the Archbishop's Council, so I knew it well. And I think it's time for a similar review, but one that actually looks at our relationship with Parliament, that looks at our relationship with the Anglican Communion as a whole, and looks at how we hold ourselves to account so that we don't get these, if you like, grandiose kings in their fiefdoms who are untouchable. We need to be able to hold each other to account, because that is the heart of the gospel. We need to be holy and humble and light foot and not seeking after power, which I'm afraid to say seems all too resonant in many of our bishops today.
Yeah, well, Jayne, this wouldn't be happening were it not for the Making Review. And the Bishop of Blackburn, the Right Reverend Philip North, has told the Church Times that the atmosphere of blame and guilt, as he put it, is creating a culture of fear that encourages cover-up among clergy and parish safeguarding officers who are very, very nervous. Do you recognise that? And if so, how should they be reassured?
I think Philip needs to look very hard at himself. What we need is accountability and transparency. And the only bishop who's actually spoken up truthfully and courageously has been the Bishop of Newcastle, Bishop Helen Ann Hartley. Now, the Bishop of Blackburn might be speaking in his own concern about fear, but the truth is the vast majority of the House of Bishops act as one. They do not speak or break ranks. They are perhaps too scared to. Certainly many of them been scared under Justin Welby's what they call head boy-like manner of treating them. But I think as Christians, we have to be open to being transparent and accountability. Ultimately, we should be scared of how God looks at us if we are covering things up.
All right.
And that points to the need for reform and review and for humility in doing just that.
All right, Jayne Ozan, former member of the General Synod and campaigner within the Church of England. Thank you very much indeed, former